Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm the ketogenic nutrition and weight management consultant at Keto Pro. I've got some very exciting guests with me this afternoon. I have Helen Ritchie, the clinical nutritional therapist from Ritchie Nutrition, and Claire Snowdon-Darling, the leading alternative health expert, presenter, educator, author, and co-founder of Balanced Wellness. And hopefully we're going to discuss the many issues surrounding menopause. So we all have our personal journeys, how we've got to this point through nutrition and menopause. So I'd like you both to just perhaps tell me a little bit about your backstory and how you got interested in menopause. Helen, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So my period stopped 7 years ago in January. And at the time I was working in the corporate world. So I was an international marketing manager for a software company. So quite a responsible job. And within about 3 months, I noticed that I got hot flushes and they were easily recognizable, and also much more anxiety. But what I didn't realize was that I actually had brain fog as well, but I didn't recognize it. I didn't really know the term. And what happened was when I was sitting at work, I just feel really stupid, like my brain wasn't working. Somebody had asked me to do something very, very simple, nothing taxing, and I'd panic and not know how to do it, even though it's something that I've been doing for nearly 30 years. Luckily, I had somebody working for me who was young and talented and very bright. So she used to sort out a lot of things for me. But in the end, to cut a very long story short, I ended up getting fired from that job. And I think a lot of it was to do with what was happening to me mentally and not being up to scratch. I mean, it turned out to be an unfair dismissal. So so I got some money out of them, but it was pretty shocking. First of all, to be struggling to do things and then to find that you've lost a job and, in a career that I was doing for 30 years. So, I mean, I knew I just couldn't go back. I just couldn't continue doing that kind of work, not even because of the brain fog, but more because I just had enough. And I'd been interested in nutrition. I'd had breast cancer the year before and started looking at why did I get breast cancer? Because I thought I was healthy. And I've always been interested in understanding why you get something, why you get sick, why you get ill. So in the end, I retrained in nutrition. And now I'm passionate about helping menopausal women manage their symptoms through nutrition and lifestyle changes, because that's what I did. So that's my story.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, well, not too dissimilar to mine, only without the job issue. But yeah, definitely managing my perimenopause and menopause with nutrition. And yeah, coming out of it the other side was probably the only time in my life that my hormones have ever been balanced, I'd say. I even had hormone therapy to have my children. So my hormones were never good to start with, but I feel, now that is the only time in my life they've ever been balanced, now that, my weight is in control and my nutrition's on point. So yes, Claire, would you like to share your backstory?
Yeah, so mine starts back in 2004 when I gave birth to my daughter and nearly died. We both nearly died during labour. And I came round from that with this horrific fatigue that I never quite got under. I just couldn't really figure out. And I thrown into a whirlwind of being a new mum. I didn't realize that I had postpartum psychosis. I just knew I couldn't really be alone with my daughter. I had massive anxiety. And I got a diagnosis of postnatal depression when she was 10 months old. And I kind of threw myself into I didn't take medication, mostly because the doctor said it was a bit late in my process. I had a really shrewd GP and I was really lucky at that time. And I threw myself into I'd always struggled with weight. So I kind of thought, this is my chance to get into nutrition. And I sort of got into exercise and nutrition, and in doing so, discovered the therapy that I sort of retrained in. I've subsequently retrained in lots of therapies, but the one that became the focus of my clinic, and of which I have now developed a whole new branch of, kind of got into clinic, was doing everything that I should be doing, doing a lot of self work, but I still couldn't bond with my daughter, and I still couldn't get under this ridiculous tiredness, and my periods had started going strange. This is when I was about 32, so this was probably about 2008, and then I got diagnosed at that point with PTSD, and so that sort of threw me into that. After I'd actually got over the PTSD using a combination of therapies and psychology, a fantastic clinical psychologist, my periods started getting very, very strange, lots of weight gain, mood swings like, crazy, and this insane fatigue. Every single doctor told me there was nothing wrong with me. Every single doctor thought it was psychosomatic because nothing was showing up on my blood tests. What I now realize is they weren't checking me for progesterone dropping off. They were only checking me for estrogen. So they were missing so much in my profile. It's early 30s. Kept on doing what I was supposed to be doing what I was supposed to be doing. And it actually culminated in 2015, by which point I think I was 4 stone heavier than I am now, energy on the floor. And I finally managed to get taken seriously enough to see an endocrinologist privately, where they were actually assessing me for a condition called Sheehan syndrome, which is very, very rare in the Western world and only really happens if you've lost a lot of blood. And I fit the pathology of it. Basically, women, it's about 10 years after they've given birth that they get a diagnosis because they haven't got over the fatigue and all of these things are happening. And he said, that would be really exciting if it was that. And they drew 28 vials of blood. And 6 weeks later, having sent these bloods off to like specialist labs all around Europe, I go back and he said, yeah, no, it's menopause. And that was about 3 weeks before I turned 40. And I went, oh, okay, well, 3 months ago, nobody picked up on that. And he said they weren't testing the hormones that we've been testing. And so it was only because he did such a comprehensive panel that he was able to identify that my progesterone was dropping, my FSH was rising, because at the time my estrogen was absolutely fine and continued to be for a really, really long time. So, I mean, I was already in the health world, but I then realized I had been dramatically let down, not only by the medical model, because they just went, go on HRT. And I was like, I have no clue where to start. Luckily got some advice about natural progesterone, but then with a massive history that I now, teach about gut permeability, intestinal permeability, the chronic fatigue. There was no way I was able to tolerate the micronized progesterone you can get from the GP. And so I then actually had to go down the route of the bespoke bioidentical hormones, which are of course unregulated, quite controversial, but I can honestly say that without them, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. And this process then really sort of gave me a lot of clarity on where the medical model is going wrong with menopause and where the complementary world is going wrong with menopause. And from that, my business partner and I actually created a new modality which focuses on diet, stress hormones, and the sex hormones, and the connection with the gut and the immune system. And that is now the basis of the work that we teach all around the world.
Fabulous. That's great. It's really, really inspiring, isn't it? Both of your stories are. For ladies that are going to be watching our podcast, who are maybe thinking, are they perimenopausal or heading towards menopause? And to be honest, when I was getting there, I didn't give it much thought, even though I was, in my 40s. I didn't think, I'm not there yet. I've got ages yet. What symptoms am I going to have? I just remember my mum having hot flushes and never speaking about anything else. But the more people I've spoke to about like yourselves with anxiety, depression, not wanting to, mix in crowds, quite alternative symptoms that perhaps you wouldn't think of, or just, naturally, recognize as menopausal symptoms, even panic attacks and the like. What's your experience with the anxiety and depression been like with the hormones? And how would you advise somebody on what symptoms to look out for?
Can I flag the early? So one of the things I'm always teaching my practitioners is it's the early warning signs that I think are really, really overlooked. And we tend to think of, if a woman's in her mid 40s onwards, we kind of go, oh yeah, that must be, it could be, but is it perimenopause? Could it be? But actually, I think we're really missing the women who are in their late 30s, very often have had children a little bit later, and it's that post-baby, early perimenopause mashup. But one of the most astonishing and repetitive symptoms, real early warning sign that I hear, is women just saying, I've just lost a little bit of confidence. Like, it's not social anxiety yet. It's not full-blown anxiety. It's just suddenly like, I don't know how I feel about driving. I'm a bit nervous about doing that 3-hour drive by myself. I wouldn't have thought about it 2 years ago, but now I'm just that little bit more nervous. And I'm showing some strange behaviors. So I'm just wondering if I'm really tired, but I'm putting my keys in the fridge. It's those ever so slightly, am I going a little bit crazy, or am I just overwhelmed kind of symptoms that I think have really overlooked.
Yeah, for me, anxiety was one, but not really until I sort of got into my period stopping in my 50s. I was 53. But for me, I remember going to the doctor when I was 35, and I've never had children, so that was never in my mix of my story. But going to the doctor and saying, oh, my periods are so heavy and painful and clotty. And he said to me, when I was 35, oh, that's the menopause. And, at age 35, when, I might have still been thinking maybe I would have some children, I just burst into tears. I was so upset. But then into the 40s and mid 40s to late 40s, the flooding, the really heavy period, just sudden gush of blood. And all of those symptoms are, quite classic perimenopause. But I think, looking back at my history, that I've always had heavy periods and period pain and clotting. And we accept that as being normal, for young girls right through to your perimenopause, menopause. But it's not normal. It's an indication that you've got a hormonal imbalance. I had acne, endometriosis scars. They're all signs that there's something wrong with my hormones. But we just accepted it. When I was a teenager, it was like, oh, period pains, I'll go and buy some Feminac. Just accept it and try and get rid of the symptoms. And I think that is so wrong. We're just not educated from a young age about our bodies and our menstrual cycle and our hormones. Makes me mad.
Yeah, me too.
I agree. I was
sad as well, mad and sad.
I was probably the opposite of you, Helen, with regards to periods. Mine were virtually not non-existent, but so light. It could be 1 or 2 days really, really light. So the total opposite, but still showing a hormonal imbalance, obviously. But yeah, it can be one extreme to the other, can't it? It's not one or other.
No.
It's a whole mixture. So what symptoms do your clients tend to come in with? If it's, getting past that stage that they have lost a bit of confidence, or, they're putting their phone in the fridge, which is the thing I did quite often. And I said to one of my friends this weekend, actually, that if it wasn't written on my fridge as a memo, it wouldn't happen because I couldn't remember it. And yeah, it was only, changing my nutrition that got rid of that brain fog for me. But what other things have they come in with? Anything that you think, oh, I hadn't seen that before, that's one to add to the list?
No, I mean, I think, huge anxiety, major overwhelm, depression, weight gain, the flushes. And I mean, obviously women have hot flushes and flashes. They don't tend to be the bits that people complain about because we kind of know about them, and commonly they're a bit later on, or it's insomnia. The insomnia, I think, is really life affecting. That's been my worst symptom, and I'm only just getting on top of it now. And I think that's really life affecting for a lot of women, because then, I mean, you just can't function at work. Just that, yeah. The brain fog, I mean, we use that word and it sounds so benign, doesn't it? But it's everything. It's name recall, it's word recall, it's memory. It's just, I don't know what I'm saying, just nothing's coming out.
Going blank. I think the mood symptoms, the brain symptoms, suddenly reacting, being very tearful. I worked with a woman recently. She was at 42, perimenopausal, and she wanted to try the nutrition route before doing anything else. And she was very, focused, career-oriented, really into her exercise. And she'd suddenly become really emotional, and she'd never been that person before. But everybody comes in with a unique set of symptoms. So for her, she was getting hot flushes, but hers would be preceded or accompanied by nausea, and that was something new for me that we worked on. But that was different. But everything we've said, sleep disruption, weight gain. Weight gain is the one thing that nearly everybody is worried about, wants to do something about, doesn't know what to do.
And that's what I see mainly as in a weight management scenario, basically, is that the ladies come in that they've put on 2 stone overnight. I call it menopausal. I've got all this, weight gain that's instantly gone on my belly and hips, whereas perhaps it wouldn't have gone there before. But for me, I think I lost 6.5 stone, and obviously getting rid of that belly fat, which obviously gives rise to more estrogen, doesn't it, which imbalances your hormones again. That's definitely helped me. So I think, trying to advise ladies to change their nutrition and help themselves as well, balance their hormones naturally, obviously, is the way to go, and the way we all probably work, isn't it? So
totally. I just want to pick up on another symptom, that because people are really confused by it, which is sudden developing allergies. Like, what do you mean? I suddenly can't eat squid, I can't eat mussels, and I've always been able to eat them. Like, people coming in going, I've suddenly developed this intolerance to shellfish. And of course, it's as our estrogen profiles change and the histamine builds up and the gut gets destabilized, women just become seriously intolerant to things, and alcohol, really just intolerant of alcohol.
But I don't think people realize about histamines in food, because before I looked at nutrition, I didn't realize, that the longer the meat was there, the higher the histamine level, for example, or anything. And it was only because I had a friend then who has quite severe histamine tolerance, that her diet is so restricted because of it, so I was trying to research to look at things for her, but I was totally unaware about histamine before the nutrition. So I'm sure other ladies who, well, you've never heard of it, histamine. The only thing I used to think of with histamine was an antihistamine when I had hay fever. I didn't associate it with food at all.
No, and I think what's really interesting when you start to look at what's happening in the bowel around the time of menopause is this prevalence of women developing small intestine bacterial overgrowth, particularly if they have a history of irritable bowel syndrome. And as soon as we get that bacterial overgrowth, and it can literally just be because our hormones have changed, so the gut environment changes and they just go a bit crazy. And so as soon as there's SIBO present, that's usually what stimulates the histamine response. So the kind of diets that I know that we're all big fans of are hugely important and impactive on getting rid of the SIBO. In fact, I believe that there was a brilliant bit of research done on keto carnivore, where SIBO is stubborn and it's it can be quite difficult to get rid of, and you actually sometimes, in some cases, need to get antibiotics. Like it's just not possible to get rid of, particularly the hydrogen, I don't know, methane or hydrogen releasing ones, can't remember the detail, menopause. But one of them just sometimes just doesn't shift with the best will in the world and doing everything naturally for 6, 8, 10 months. And so the antibiotics are required. But actually with keto carnivore, this discovery that in 4 weeks on keto carnivore, 100% of people were showing that histamine intolerance had gone, the SIBO had gone. So diet is huge, isn't it, for women?
Yeah.
And you were mentioning
and that's exactly what sorry Claire, I was just going to say that's exactly what my lady who's doing, she's carnivore. So
great. And I think you mentioned us doing it naturally. I kind of just want to say that I think what's really touted in the media is HRT is the magic bullet, and I'm super honest that I couldn't get out of bed with mine. However, unless you have got the right environment, it's just going to make matters worse.
Absolutely, yeah. I know, and that's what really frustrates me as well. I mean, I'm definitely not anti it. I can't take it myself, and I'm fine now. But yeah, I mean, it is billed as this magic bullet, and that's all you need. And it's a shame, isn't it? Because I think that's women believe that is the answer, therefore they don't need to look any further. They don't need to look at the nutrition, lifestyle, alcohol, sleep, stress, and they're all huge factors. So yeah, annoys me a lot.
Yeah.
So I know I'm carnivore, I've been low carb keto for 3 years, and I'm like carnivore. So that's how my sort of journey went. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm the most balanced now that I've ever been in my life. So is that the nutritional information that you supply all of your clients, or do you advise them for different nutritional profiles?
I'll go first.
Claire,
you go.
So for me, I mean, certainly for menopause, perimenopause symptoms, I explain all about insulin and blood sugar balance and what insulin is doing to the hormones and causing even greater imbalances. Explain, and in the gut as well. And so so it really has to be a low carb approach. But because I'm doing, I work one-to-one, it's personalized, so I have to work with what I've got. So if they're not prepared to give things up, or gradually, it's a process. I tend to work over sort of 4 months. Then I have to meet them where they are. And for some people, cutting out, not cutting out sugar, because we all know that sugar's no good. But some of the starchy carbs are quite hard for some people to start giving up. And so we try and get them to, well, just try it. And alcohol as well, just try it for 2 weeks, see how you feel. So it is a gradual process, and that is what I tend towards. Depends who I'm working with.
Yeah. Claire?
So we have a process that we take people on, and usually when we're getting someone coming in where they've been on a standard Western diet, we are looking at a tweak basically to get rid of wheat and dairy predominantly, cow's milk predominantly, and sugar. And so we go low carb, but it's more a focus on let's just have a protein at every meal. Let's just tweak it. So we start off with a slightly more gentle approach, but it is low carb. It probably works at about 70 grams a day. It's not ultra low carb, and it's certainly not keto. And then we have a different process. So if someone then is going through a hormone reset, then we start looking at removing histamine foods. We start looking at some other things. If someone then needs to go fully down a gut microbiome reset, we start going, I guess it's more down the autoimmune paleo route of removing all the nightshades, so we start removing mostly plant-based foods. And then if someone is in full autoimmune or major weight issues, major hormone fallout, then we go into the sort of keto carnivore route.
Yeah,
but yeah, we like to just I just like to take them on a journey, because I know for me, when I first got into this, I used to eat a lot of junk food, and there's no way that if someone said to me, you're going to be hardcore carnivore, I'd gone, yeah,
no, exactly.
No way.
It's just a step too far, isn't it?
I know.
You take them step by step, meeting them where they are, and
I think
exactly.
definitely. And for me, that was exactly what I did. I started off as low carb, as I say, and then transitioned into keto. And then I didn't used to eat essentially much meat at all. I would eat a little bit of chicken now and then, all the time while I was growing up. So I've only eaten steak for the last year. And now I'm fully carnivore for the last 9-10 months. So it's been quite a transition to go from, plant and wheat based to keto and then to carnivore. But I say it's definitely the way forward for myself, and how we take them on that journey as well over a course of weeks, gradually removing certain things each time, basically, until we can tweak what the issue is. But I think it's definitely the way. I tend to have lots of questions surrounding exercise. I exercise quite a lot. Since I've lost the weight, I'm a very keen runner. I've run London Marathon twice last October.
Wow.
Amazing.
I've just started doing triathlon as well. So I know a lot of ladies who are of the same age or coming up to the same age as myself who train quite a lot. And, when we weren't having, perimenopause or menopause, and we had periods as normal, you perhaps would know when to do low intensity training when you're pre-menstruating, and then perhaps when the estrogen is kicked in at day 3 to 5, that you can ramp up your training a little bit more because you'd have more energy. But obviously now we don't have any periods at all, so I'm totally oblivious as to when to train. I literally train 6 days a week and have one rest day. But if people ask you about exercise and menopause, how do you advise your clients on that?
I advise that they need to switch their training to be more strength based, to build more muscle, muscle pulling on bone to protect the bones, protect against osteoporosis, but also, more muscle. Muscle is more metabolically active than fat, so they're converting some fat to muscle, and that's shown to be helpful to avoid muscle wastage as well, and especially if they're trying to lose weight. But listen to your body. I think once people get off junk foods and their brain's not being messed up, and they're listening to hunger pangs, and that they can feel hopefully eventually tune into how they're feeling. And generally I think it is better to exercise earlier in the day rather than later, closer to bedtime, where they might disrupt sleep because it's stress hormone. But if they're not going to exercise at all, it's still better to do it in the evening than not at all. And exercise is really good for mood and getting oxygen to the brain and a lot of the symptoms. So but I know that there's a lot of with extreme exercise, if you're training for a marathon, there can be knock-on effects on the gut as well. So it's complicated. It depends on the individual, but also building in yoga, stretching, that kind of strength building, balance for healthy old age, that kind of exercise too. Yeah,
definitely. Claire, have you come across any queries?
So sort of same, I think, as Helen. I would be definitely advising to exercise in the morning when cortisol is at its peak, not at night time. Certainly do not flog a dead horse. It's a kind of a fine line, particularly I think for people getting into trying to adopt a more healthy lifestyle, as they kind of go, I really need to work out, I want to lose weight. But actually, if we're exhausted, then we can just be making the situation worse. So it's that fine line of tuning in to your gut and saying, is this me, procrastinating, or am I actually genuinely exhausted? And really developing that self-awareness, which can take some time. Definitely weights in menopause, and reducing the cardio. I'm completely in agreement with that. Yeah.
I think one of the issues is that, the confusion about nutrition and health and what's healthy. People are still very much tuned into the eat less, do more, like go running. I'm going to, I need to get out there and run. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with running, but it's not going to necessarily help you lose weight.
No.
And a lot of people just don't get that at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't start running until I'd lost all of the weight that I intended to lose. And I was initially walking while I was trying to lose weight, because obviously you're in more of a fat burning mode, aren't you, when you do low intensity. While I was trying to lose weight, I walked. And then when I'd lost all of the weight, I thought, okay, now I'm going to try and run. But yes, I understand that lifting weights, and I have probably built quite a lot of muscle since being carnivore as well, and just eating a lot of protein and fat. But yeah, doing the weights, building the muscle, doing the stretching. I do Pilates several times a week, which is great. It's really good, as you say, for making sure that we don't lose our muscle mass, because that's one of the side effects of old age, I suppose, isn't it? And after menopause, is that we start to lose some of our muscles, which we need. That's super, super important. So if you have any advice that you would give to your younger self, that you think, oh, I wish I'd known that in my 20s, to be able to move forward in a healthy frame of mind, in a healthy body, what would you say to yourself, Helen?
I wish I'd known about what I was talking about earlier, about how hormonal imbalances can be caused by the food you're eating. But the one word, when I found out about insulin and what it does to you outside of anything to do with diabetes, and that it's a fat storage hormone and you can't lose weight when it's present, that was mind-blowing for me. And I only found that out about 10 years ago, and I'm nearly 60. So if I'd have known that when I was 20, I might have solved my acne, my so many things, painful periods, endometriosis, breast cancer, who knows?
Yeah, definitely. And yourself, Claire, I can imagine it would have been life-changing for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That the diets that I was doing, desperate bid to try and lose weight, were predominantly carb-based, and actually that this is not the way to go. And hungry doesn't equal healthy. That's just not a way to lose weight. I would also tell my younger self that living as much as I lived in the 90s there is probably going to be a knock-on effect at some point. Have a good time, but do know that you will be paying for this at some point in your 40s. Go to bed before 6 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. We need our sleep. It's very important. Well, it's been lovely chatting to you both, and I hope that perhaps we can pick this up at another time and delve into one sort of area quite deep. I'm sure we'll have some questions posed when I post this, and perhaps we can come back to it in the future. But it's been lovely chatting to you both. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Brilliant.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of the day in the sunshine.
Will do. And you. Thank you, Helen.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire.
Bye.
Bye.